We continue this remake with depth charge blowing the crystal cavern like in the original. However, instead of Mortal Demento, it's actually Gog Mazios that is the one to awaken. And he says, "Little one, where am I?" Into which depth charge is like, I ain't that small. Like, hold up. So, like, can we take a minute? To which he says, "Fine, Cybertronian, where am I? I'm Gog Mazios, by the way. The Infernal Dragon." To which Depchild is like, cool, nice to meet you. Okay, so I want you to make sure your senses are all in working, and you might be able to sense your alpha or apex, whatever you want to call them. To which Gog Mazios takes him in and is like, oh dang, is that Balerion? Dang, brother came a long way. Or, brother dragon came a long way. And to which he says, so he's in the middle of a fight right now. To which, this is where Death Trap is like, yep. Now, how about we go out there, kick some butt, and take some names. To which Gog Mazios is like, heck yeah, let's go. But now, back to the battlefield itself, this is where we actually see Balerion and Geismagorm going at it, just blasting each other in a Dragon Ball style beam clash. However, this is where they actually see it's going nowhere. So when the beams explode, Starscream is just wondering like, what the heck is going on? This should have been over by now. I have the advantage. I have an entire army of wyverns. How are these Autobots still doing better? To which this is where Balerion taunts Starscream and is like, look at you, failing as per usual. To which Starscream grits his teeth and tells Geismagorm to attack. To which this is where Geismagorm actually charges up another, dragon-based or blood-based energy ball and fires it at Balerion. However, Balerion dodges it and this time dives down to actually pull a Ray Dow. Crazy how Ray Dow, it literally has one of the best movesets for Balerion, in all honesty. The wing attacks, the way it moves. Basically, he hits that man with a diving wing slash. Keep in mind, Balerion's wings are hard enough to actually be used as, like, close combat. Like Ray Dow, like a Staraptor, and I guess you could say like a guard jump. So he straight up smacks the top of Geismagorm's head, causing him to skid back as Starscream looks with anger as Thrust and Dirge basically look on in absolute disbelief. And Balerion goes in for basically a bite, but his jaw is grabbed and he is slammed into the ground by Geismagorm's forelimbs. And he simply murmurs to himself like, dang it, I'd forgotten he had these many arms. And so this is where he actually tries to feed on him. Keep in mind, by this time, the Autobots have recovered, and Ratchet, Bumblebee, and Wheeljack are able to finally get Bulkhead back to base and actually stabilize him. However, Geismagorm actually goes to, try to drain and suck all the energy out of him. No diddy. This is where Balerion actually tail whips and trips Geismagorm, causing him to stumble, and then flies back up and delivers, this time, a much more potent wing slash to the top of his head, causing crystals and even armored flesh to actually get sliced off on that one. This is where Balerion then simply swings all of his weight, putting it into his tail, and smacks Geismagorm back, causing him to not only go flying a little bit off the ground, but stumble and just tumble along. Meanwhile, the rest of it seemed like Aruzan or Eruzarian, or we're just going to call it Aruzan, Australian, and Until Ka basically have it all set. The wyverns are dying off, once again going right back into extinction. And to which Australian says, it's a shame, we really could have used them on our side. To which Until Ka is like, well, if we actually had Morgan Le Fay's power, perhaps we could have actually used them. And this is where the wyverns actually do begin, I guess you could say, get covered in oil, and it's raining from the sky. And this where all the other dragons and even Balerion takes a moment because as he smells it, and he's like, oh, this is about to be good. And this is where they hear the roar of Gog Mazios, the machine eater, as I call him, the black dragon, the oil Slick Dragon, the baby oil producer. Nah, I'm joking. But yeah, he actually does put all the oil on, or drops the oil on the wyverns. And then when he simply like lights his jaw into flicker, everything catches on fire. And the Autobots and, well, even Starscream's faction simply look up in disbelief, not even being able to comprehend what the heck is going on. And this is where Balerion then utilizes this opportunity to get his jaws around Geismagorn and actually utilizes his feet and talons on his wings to pin him firmly, and then pulls a JP3 Spinosaurus and snaps Geismagorn's neck, causing him to fall to the ground lifeless. And this is where Starscream is in utter panic as Balerion turns his attention to him. But it's not in the way you think. He simply snatches the talisman off of Starscream. And this is where Thrust simply states, oh sorry, not Thrust, Dirt simply states, we have to get out of here. There's no way we're winning here. We have to actually do this. So this is where Thrust simply states, okay, then we'll just abandon him. And Dirt says, good idea. And drops over dead. And this is where Thrust simply looks to see Strongarm with her cannon pointing at him, saying, now we can do this one of two ways. One, you could surrender and we'll take you hostage, or just capture you and put you in prison. Or two, you can end up like your friend there. To which this was Starscream's like, I can't lose. I shouldn't be losing here. And he even tries to reach out for the talisman, to which Balerion kind of just like petty wing flicks him down. And this is where Morgan is like, dang it, Starscream, you had all the opportunity, everything, and you still squandered it. To which Starscream's like, no, I didn't. I had it. I was winning. I, Starscream, had it. These dragons, these creatures, I had it. To which Morgan Le Fay simply looks at him. Had what? Had what exactly? You had a battle, but you had no results. You had nothing to begin with. To which she simply states, Balerion, you may use my power. To which Starscream's like, no. Not after everything I've done. Everything, this can't be how it ends. To which Balerion simply states, Morgan, I don't know what you actually expected from him. He's a failure. Failed at being Megatron's second in command. And now look at him. Failed at being a leader himself. To which Morgan says, indeed, now you will have everything. Both me and Merlin's magic will work in harmony, I promise you. So this is where Balerion simply crushes the talisman and absorbs its, basically the dark magic from it. And Balerion simply states, wow, this actually feels great. And to which Starscream was like, how? After everything, I still failed. I found the talisman. My men found it. I had the dragon. I had the army. And now, what am I? To which Balerion simply states, a broken shell. I wonder what your history was, Starscream. Or at least I wonder what your history was now, I should say. Because again, do remember, Balerion is a drone, or at least was a drone commander back then. So he would have known Starscream's betrayal. And so this is where Balerion then utilizes the magic to resurrect at least the 4 main arc wyverns. Poison, lightning, fire, and ice. All of them being resurrected and reformed. No longer mindless drones. They serve Balerion willingly, as seeing him as their one true alpha. And this is where Thrust ultimately is walked over in handcuffs by Strongarm and placed at the feet of the other Autobots. To which they're just simply like, dang, that sucks. To which Strongarm's like, what we do with him? To which Arachnus simply states, I know exactly what we do. And well, Thrust gets killed right then and there. And keep in mind, again, this is Arachnid. she knows that a future threat is not what the Autobots need right now, especially with everything that's going on. So, killing Thrust kind of feels in character. Now you might ask, would the other Autobots approve of this? Considering the Autobots that would actually be here right now are Optimus, RC, Strong Arm, Depth Charge, and Arachnid, along with Balerion and the rest of his Dragon team, now with Gog Mazios. I think that they would definitely approve. Or at least, kind of just be like, dang, could have just took him back to base. To which she says, I do admit, maybe I did go a little far. But then again, it is a necessary outcome. To which Balerion looks at her and is like, darling, you do have a way with words. Just as much as you have a way of killing people in such a splendid manner. To which he's like, oh ho ho, is my big dragon hubby flirting now? To which Balerion's like, now, not in front of the other people. To which this is where Optimus also states something as well. And he simply states, this is a greater victory than he had ever hoped for. And even looks at the Wyvern army, who's just simply flying around and enjoying their new lease on life. And Optimus does admit that, well, this is going to be hard to keep a secret, but they do have enough valleys around Jasper, Nevada to kind of keep it under wraps. So he simply tells Balerion, please keep them in the valley until further notice, and hopefully no one finds them. And this is where, everyone kind of just goes back to base, with Balerion simply welcoming and ultimately loving the fact that his team is now back together. However, we don't end off here. No, we end off the same way I did in the remake, with Naga simply dragging everyone back to MECH, or simply heading towards MECH. And this is where Silas simply states, Lord Naga, it is great that you've returned. How was your adventure? How was your daily dose of destruction? To which Naga simply states, it was great, my dear Silas. I've made so many things, reunited with old enemies and making new friends. To which Silas thinks to himself, and he says, friends? Really, perhaps we can meet them. And this is where Naga moves to the side and simply states, don't worry, here they are. And this is where Knockout and Breakdown, sporting their new enhancements, obviously, simply states, Silas, my boy, it's been a while. To which Silas is like, no, wait. And to which they're looking at each other like, what you mean, wait? Come on, let's get this over with. Why? You don't want to endure the same thing you did to Breakdown? To which Silas is like, wait a minute, I can be useful to you. I found many things and created many things that should be useful. To which Knockout is like, okay, go ahead and show us. To which Silas is like, great, right this way. And so, this is where Silas actually punches open a Cybertronian-sized door and walks them through it. To which Knockout and Breakdown are both looking around, slightly interested. And this is where they see the first thing, that being Nemesis Prime. Kind of obvious that, this would be made by MECH and stuff like that. Still there, still around, still kicking. And Naga's like, not bad. Still got those glorious rims like the original Optimus Prime, but not as heavy duty. But I do love what I'm seeing. And this is where Breakdown actually sees Viacons. More so the middle three, if you guys are, looking at it. The tanker, or the electric one, right? And then the sniper. And this is where Knockout simply states, while an army of 20 so far as I counted, this could actually be useful. You're doing well so far, Silas. Now, what do you have that can give us the edge over our dragon compatriot? To which this is where Breakdown simply states, oh, wait a minute, Knockout, check this out. And this is where Knockout turns and actually sees something very breathtaking. The equal dragon weapon. To which Silas simply states, well, we actually discovered it some time ago. It was a weapon forged by King Magor in order to counter Balerion himself. Perhaps you guys can find some use for it? And this is where Knockout says, Ah, yes, this will do greatly. And that's we're going to leave it off here, you guys. How do you feel about me introducing the Equal Dragon weapon? What will happen to it? What will the Decepticons do to it? And will another Decepticon be appearing very soon?